Dodge City. I stopped to get gas. Didn't realize my cameras weren't working. And as I'm pulling out of the gas station, this woman flags me over. They give me a duck. She had a blue Gladiator, and so I gave her a duck in return as well. So I thought that was a pretty good start to the day. So today we're traveling from Dodge City to the Sand Creek Massacre site. So in 1858 is when the Pikes Peak gold rush occurred. 1861, you start seeing Indian agents getting involved with what was called the 1861 Treaty at Fort Wise, and that further reduced Cheyenne lands. And this was conducted by Daniel Boone's grandson, and his motive was to get as many titles for Native American land or for American Indian land as he possibly could. In this treaty, you know, he sweet talked them and provided the chiefs, because not all of them arrived, but the ones that did, the 10 that were there, from the 10 tribes that were there, you know, they agreed to reduce their land by, I mean, it ended up with like 1/13 of their land left. And it was crappy land. They couldn't, although they were promised that, oh, this would be good and we would supply you with this, we'd do that. It was total crap. Enter the Dog Soldiers in this discussion. And the Dog Soldiers were a militant group of Arapaho, Sioux, and Cheyenne that did not want to deal with the white people at all. They were warlike and did not trust any of this. So we can talk about the 1862 uprising, the Dakota War is what they call it. It's the Santee Sioux uprising. You know, the Minnesota massacres. There's a lot of things that happened at that time. They were provoked. You can't just go and starve people that have capitulated to you. You can't cheat them out of their land and cheat them out of their money and then make promises and not deliver, and there not be anger on the cheated side. Lots of corruption through the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian agents out there that provoked a lot of justifiable anger with the Sioux. Then they turned around and they lashed out at white people in Minnesota and slaughtered about 350 men, women, and children. Not justifying it, I'm just saying I understand it. The events leading up to the massacre at Sand Creek. In July of 1864, Governor Evans ordered all Native Americans, Plains Indians, to Fort Lyon. Anybody not there is going to be considered a hostile, and we will destroy you. This is Governor Evans. He promises them lodging, food, protection. Then in September 28th, 1864, you've got chiefs like Black Kettle, Bull Bear, One Eye, Left Hand from the Arapaho, all sought out Governor Evans to confirm and have a peace parley or council. And you know, even at this meeting, you know, White Antelope, is a notable name, expressed his concern. He was anxious. It's like, will we be safe at Fort Lyons, because we're going to be close to soldiers. Evans and Chivington especially, because he's the one who led the attack on Sand Creek, reassured him, oh no, you go back to Fort Lyon, and you get with Major Winecoop, who brought them to Governor Evans in September of 1864, to promise him that, oh no, it's going to be okay. You'll go there and you'll have food and protective services and lodging. You know, what's kind of notable at this meeting is, one, Evans told them that, for some reason that, well, your wartime advantages are in the summer while mine are in the winter, and my time is coming. So during this September council meeting, Chivington had received orders from General Samuel Curtis. That's the military director of Kansas, I believe, or Missouri or whatever, but he was over Chivington's boss in his chain of command, saying that he wanted no peace with the Indians until they suffered more. No peace must be made without my direction, is what he said. And Chivington then proceeded to go around from September to November 29th, razing villages, to the point that somewhere in the middle of there, somebody had sent word back, and to the point that Generals Grant, people like that would get involved. And that's when an inspector general went out there under General Curtis, because General Curtis was dealing with Missouri bushwhackers and Confederate fights out there. And there were Colorado soldiers out in Missouri that Evans was trying to get back. And so Evans was making this big production while he's picking a massive fight with the Native Americans, who were mostly peaceful at that time. So November 6th, Black Kettle arrives with about 500 or more Cheyenne, 2/3 of which are women and children. The men who may have still wanted to raid or were out hunting because they were told they could get one last buffalo hunt in before they go on the reservation, because deep winter is getting ready to come. And so Major Anthony tells them, no, you can't stay outside of the fort at Fort Lyon. You have to go 40 miles away to Sand Creek and set up your camp there. Shortly after, that's where Left Hand arrives with the Arapaho. They initially because there were more men there, they initially took, only like 50 guys, originally took the weapons away from the Arapaho and then gave them back, and sent them on to Sand Creek as well. And they were promised protection and food would be arriving and so on. And this was all on hold now because Major Wynkoop is not there anymore, and Major Anthony has to get orders, which are going to happen very soon. And so either way, the Arapaho and the Cheyenne go to Sand Creek and establish the Sand Creek camp, or Sand Creek village there. They establish their village there. On the morning of November 28th, Colonel Chivington arrives with the bloodless 3rd Cavalry, nearing the end of their 100 days of being called up, and no justifiable battles to justify back east that, we called these guys up for nothing. But, so November 28th, that morning, Chivington arrives. He immediately, which then you find out, Major Anthony's in on this whole plot too. So, because he's like, yeah, we're all doing this. And thanks for arriving. And oh my God, because we've got hostile Indians inbound, I hear. So Chivington pickets outside the post so that nobody can escape, because the last thing he wants is Sand Creek Village to be warned that he's coming and why they're coming. The night before the raid, you've got Captain Silas Sewell, Lieutenant Joseph Kramer, which talk about after, and Lieutenant James Connor, which I think he actually opened fire, but I'm not sure, because Silas, Sewell, and Kramer ordered their 2 companies of Coloradans not to participate. They did not fire that day. They would go on to testify, or try to testify, because we'll get it. So it is now the evening of the 28th of November, and the camp is basically surrounded. And at dawn that morning, the sun's coming up, and the soldiers are riding into the camp, 4 abreast or more, and breaking ice over frozen pools, because it is November 29th, 1864, and it is cold southeastern Colorado plains, and you can see from the video the landscape. They start firing. They move in and they start charging. Shivington saw the flag. Black Kettle had warned his people, don't attack. This is, no, we're protected. Don't worry, they know we're peaceful. And raised a white flag as well as the American flag over his teepee. Shivington knew this, saw this, and he didn't care, because this was the plan all along. And that's backed up by all of the evidence prior. They set this up, and it ends up being 8 hours of carnage. And conservative estimates will say that like 150 to 170 Cheyenne, 105 women and children, 28 men, were the 9 U.S. casualties were likely from friendly fire, because they were shooting through tents at each other. Colorado, the very flat part of Colorado. You had officers like Captain Silas Sewell. What happens to heroes? Lieutenant Joseph Kramer and Lieutenant James Connor confronted Shivington at the leadership meeting that day before they rode out to Sand Creek, and basically were saying that, listen, this is not honorable. Don't do this. They are a peaceful village, and if you remember the Last Samurai, where Tom Cruise is yelling at the captain, his boss, that they're peaceful Indians and they've never, right? These 3 guys, that's where I think that scene is inspired from, because that's what they were doing. And I'm telling you, it takes a lot of integrity to stand up to your superiors and say something's wrong. And I can tell you that from personal experience from the military. So after the September 28th meeting, 1864, by mid-October, Black Kettle, Chief Left Hand, they show up at Fort Lyon to meet Wynkoop and surrender to Wynkoop. around mid-October. Now, to conform with Chivington and Governor Evans' instructions that you go there, you're going to get protection, you're going to get fed, and you won't be harmed. You'll be safe. The majority of Plains Indians were peaceful. They were abiding by the treaty. They gave their word in 1851, even though that treaty had been violated repeatedly. Even though there were provocations by white people and military and Indian agents during that time. For the most part, Southern tribes were largely inclined to peace. There were militant bands, there were episodes, and there were instances of violence from Native Americans to white people. So there's no arguing that. And when violence out there occurred, it was brutal. Basically, Black Kettle's promised that his peaceful band, because he's one of the chiefs that's well known to Colonel Chivington, to Governor Evans, to all, that he wants peace. Chivington met with and Evans, Governor Evans, met with Black Kettle and Left Hand, and guys like White Antelope. Chiefs like White Antelope, who were there in Denver for a second time, and Evans is saying, look, you guys either surrender or we destroy you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you want to surrender, you go to Fort Lyon and you talk to Major Wynkoop, and Major Wynkoop will take care of you. You'll have safety and you'll have protection. So around from late September, November, Left Hand, White Antelope, Black Kettle, they go to Major Wynkoop at Fort Lyon, and they basically surrender. They're told, oh, you can't camp here, you have to go to Sand Creek and camp there. So 40 miles away, they go to Sand Creek and camp, and they establish it's been there before. This is not an uncommon thing. But they were promised, you'll be safe, you will not be attacked. All you have to do is fly the American flag and wear your peace medals, because that's what shows that you're a friendly tribe. You're a peace-seeking tribe. So the United States Army, the cavalry, knows not to attack you.
So the massacre site itself is located on the other side of that far tree line, way back there.
Okay.
That's considered to be sacred ground to the tribes today, so there is no access.
Okay.
Picnic area here has some signs. Then there's a half-mile trail to the top of Monument Hill beyond the trees.
Okay.
More signs up top. And from the top of the hill, you can look down into the valley where the village was located.
Gotcha.
If you prefer to drive, you can. Just go about halfway back to our entrance. There's a road on your right.
That road we saw coming in?
Yep.
Okay. And you just drive on up if I want to?
So I'm here at Sand Creek, site of the Sand Creek Massacre, which happened in the wooded area behind me. That's the creek bed, and this surrounding area is where in 1864 Black Kettle, chief of the Cheyenne, who was a peaceful chief, settled and had been at this camp for many months. So when I hear other historians try to say that, oh well, there was no, they didn't know that the Cheyenne, that this band of Cheyenne was peaceful. They knew. The 3rd Colorado Cavalry, the volunteers that were called up specifically to fight Indians. This comes on the heels of mass hysteria and fear, because in 1862 was the Sioux uprising in Minnesota, and the Native Americans, American Indians, the Black Kettle was one of those chiefs that was that recognized that the expansion of white Americans into the West, his country was going to happen, and he was hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned, and saw an opportunity for his people to survive. Shivington set a lot of things into motion here when he attacked. So again, behind me you can see the creek bed. That's Sand Creek. This whole area behind me is where the massacre took place, all in the wooded area down there, that lasted for over 8 hours. The soldiers stayed for another day. According to some sources, they'll say that, oh well, they fought back. Well, yeah, they did do some fighting back, but there was a village that was attacked. You know, it's cold out here, so I'm going to just show some scenery, and instead of what I wanted to do, which was to sit down and on these benches behind me, and give a good reading of history of the events that led up to and what happened around the massacre itself. This was deliberate. They were set up. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me sometimes that the Cheyenne aren't more angry than they should be. They have every right to be. It is cold, it is windy, and you can imagine this place. November 28th, 1864 is when the soldiers arrived and surrounded the village. November 29th, the morning of November 29th is when the attack occurred, and and it lasted all day. It was an all-day affair. Yeah, there was some resistance, but that's not even. Our definitions of what is resistance and trying to defend yourself are distinctly different things. So John Evans, Governor Evans' problem with the Native Americans seems to have started when he realized he can make a load of money from the gold rush and the mineral wealth in Colorado, except that the Cheyenne and the Arapaho and the Sioux, but mainly the Cheyenne, Arapaho, the Plains Indians, and then the Utes on the west side of Colorado, who they already had a treaty with, they're in his way, and they're threatening the money that this man could be making. Captain Silas Soule was one of those heroes that this is how history treats. Most of you, if you know anything about the massacre at Sand Creek, probably don't even know who this guy is. But Captain Silas Soule was one of those brave people that stood up and did the right thing in the face of overwhelming pressure to do the wrong thing. And he was set to testify against Chivington, because after people found out about the massacre and after the word that it wasn't this glorious battle as Chivington and Evans had presented it as, that it was set up. It was a setup. It was a murder. And it was a well-planned massacre, clearly. Captain Silas Soule was one of the ones that spoke out the night before. He ordered his soldiers not to fire. He would not allow his command, his people, to engage in this crime. And so as all these facts start coming out and the nation starts finding out, the nation quickly, the overall general opinion becomes, oh my God, this is horrible. That's awful. I mean, they butchered women and children. And they wanted Chivington court-martialed, but he had resigned his commission, so he couldn't be called back to be court-martialed. But there were like 3 investigations, 2 by Congress and 1 by the military. Word of this had gotten around to the Plains Indians, who'd all heard of this. This was a recruitment tool, because hello, if you didn't think you were under threat by white men before, Sand Creek. So the wars in the plains got worse, got uglier. The brutality got, it was already there, but that brutality went up a notch, or 10. I mean, by January 7th, 1865, so this is just over a month after this happened, and so word is spreading about what happened in Sand Creek. So you get 1,000 Cheyenne and Sioux that go up to Julesburg, which is it's like a junction, is part of some trail systems in northeastern Colorado, so hundreds of miles away across the state. They razed Julesburg to the ground and ripped down thousands of miles of telegraph wire. They halt supply trains and stages and mail. They cut off Salt Lake City from San Francisco and Denver and so on and so forth. So going back to Silas Soule, so he was set to appear before Congress to testify against Chivington, because they were going to put Chivington's head on a pole for this. And so just days after Lincoln's assassinated, Silas Soule is murdered in the streets of Denver by a man paid by Chivington. Chivington paid this guy named Charles Squires to kill him. And this happened days after Lincoln was assassinated as well. So there was a lot of that going on at that day too. But so Chivington goes on unpunished. He's celebrated, and this is celebrated as a battle. It's considered a battle for over 100 years. In fact, it's listed as a historical battlefield all the way up until 2007. And that's when they finally removed the placard, the granite placard that they used to have out there that said Sand Creek battlefield. Now it says now it's accurate. 2007. This happened in November 29th, 1864.